Hello and welcome to Breakaway with Dawn and Friends. This week, I wanted to talk about something that I think hits at home for all of us. And when I go deep, I want my good friend Claudia. Hi, Claudia.
Hi, Don. Nice to see you.
Nice
Of
to see you. Thank you for always making time for me. Um,
course.
Please know that I don't take you for granted.
I know you don't.
um, I wanted to talk about vulnerability. And it was a shocker to me. I guess I never realized putting the pieces together or connecting the fact that your vulnerability or like being vulnerable, it really does touch every aspect of your life.
Mhm, mhm.
So I think I said in the last episode, like just life be lifing on me right now. Like I'm not like as motivated, right? And I know I have certain things to do and I want to do them, and I'm just mentally drained.
Mhm.
And so, and I have said this before because this happens to all of us, like things that we should do or we can do. So when I feel this way, I like to do things that are going to put me in a mood or like get me back on track.
Mhm.
So I turned on the TV and I was like, okay, what can I watch? Because that I love my TV. We all know that.
Mhm.
Some people listen to things or what, but I mean, it
Right.
depends on the mood. But for me, I was like, let me see, like documentary wise, like let me see, right? So
Mhm.
I came across Brene Brown, and
Mhm.
I'm aware, like I was aware, but I didn't really realize all the research and things that she's done in her career. And
Mhm.
so I did watch on Netflix The Call to Courage.
Mhm.
And she really, she talks about, vulnerability and how, again, it touches every aspect of her life. So
Mhm.
I thought this would be a good conversation. So,
Sure. I think that's great. I welcome the topic because like you mentioned, Don, I think it's something that impacts everyone without realizing. So it's going to be nice to talk about it and maybe shed some light to your listeners to see if it's helpful to them, right?
yes, so let's see where we go with this because this is really just, a girlfriend conversation. But I think I should probably start with the definition of vulnerability, right?
Sure.
So, what does it mean and how does it differ from weakness? Because it's not weakness. Oh my
No,
gosh,
it's
showing
not.
emotions, right? Um, Talking or dealing with how you feel. Like, I just, that really bothers me that people,
Mhm.
think that it could be a weakness.
Right, right. And I think it's just that there's
But yeah,
stigma around
so
that, right?
it is important to embrace your vulnerability. Oh, you went out there for me. I'm not sure. I didn't hear you, but what were you saying? Sorry.
No, I was gonna say it just that there's stigma around the fact
Yes.
that people, right, to express what their emotions are or even talk about them, and that is being vulnerable. But sorry, I didn't want to interrupt your definition. Go ahead.
Oh no, no. And you might say it better than me, but no, but I think people think that it's weakness and it's not, right? And
Mhm.
it's important to embrace, vulnerability. In not just a personal level, but also personal growth too, right? So I'm getting way off topic here, but what I was really mostly surprised, not off topic, but off what I was about to say, but what I was really surprised with what she talked about is I was surprised that she speaks to a lot of corporations.
Mhm.
I don't know
Yeah.
why, but that it just surprised me myself. Like, so she'll go in there, and I guess people hire her to like motivate. I don't even know, but like, because she talks about how she talks to CEOs and people running
Sure.
businesses, um, and she says it's always so funny when they're like, okay, so we want to up our sales or do this or do that, and so then she's like, okay, so I'm gonna butcher this, but something like, so where's the vulnerability in this? Or like she'll bring it up and they're like looking at her like, what? Like, where does that come from? And she's like, well, how can you talk about doing A, B, C, or D without addressing or acknowledging, people's vulnerability or what? I thought that
Mhm.
was like, so I was like, wow, I really didn't realize like even
Yeah.
like so much on a professional level as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think the whole purpose of that, right, is to come in and how do I motivate my staff to, let's say, increase their sales, let's say in that example, is well, it starts from the top, right? It starts from the top down. So if you have example, an individual with very high ranking position, they may not be used to, being vulnerable or wearing their heart on their sleeve per se, because their mindset is different, right? You have a CEO who's focusing on getting things done, raising the numbers, and the last thing on their mind is probably, oh, how do I be vulnerable with my staff? How do I wear my heart on the sleeve a bit so that they see the human part of me? That's not
Yes.
typically on their mind. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's an emotional, it's a state of emotional exposure, right? So that comes from degrees of uncertainty. So that's
Mhm.
basically, I think, vulnerability in a nutshell, right?
Right.
And so
Mhm.
I can say I've always been a people person, and I've been always like I'm very good with vibes and picking up on things, reading the room, all of those things you want to say, And
Sure.
so naturally I fall into a leadership role. And
Mhm.
I mean I did very well, and I very much enjoyed it. And I think I've said this on an episode, I think that's why I'm not a manager anymore, because I don't want to be responsible for people's actions and at work,
Mhm.
but I do want to work with people, and that's the life coach in me, right? So I did step back, or not step back, but I took a lateral, like I took
Mhm.
a different position,
Sure.
that where I'm still involved with my team, but I'm not. They don't report to me. I'm not their manager, and
Right.
so it's interesting to see like the people um, now. Like I see the difference, the impact that it has if you
Mhm.
have that people element, right? So like if you
Yes.
don't, right?
Right.
Because ultimately as a manager, like you need to get your people to do things, right? And
Yes.
so that's one thing. I mean, I've had people say like, I'm here because of you. I work hard because of you, not because of the company, or and
Sure.
it's because my mentality is, as your manager, I'm here to serve you.
Mhm. Right.
And I don't think a lot of leaders have that mentality, right? So I was
Right.
able to bring in that, vulnerability. And I think just,
Mhm.
people, and then seeing the calm up from me in
Right.
uncertainty with work and stress and escalations. And, people are always watching whether you realize that or not. So,
They
um,
are.
it was
Yeah.
just it's interesting to see. And so I don't know why, but I think you guys should check it out. But it really, and the stories that she told, and it's just
Mhm.
some of them are really funny, and it's just connecting all of that for me just made so much sense.
It is. It is.
So
And she's done a lot of research, a lot of her work. She's aside from the documentary, she's got, a lot of books on vulnerability and how that connects to, all sorts of things like our trauma and why that is. And also she's got a couple of TED Talks, and she actually has a podcast herself. No competition there, but she does. So there's
no,
just a lot, but I think she does a really nice job. Brene Brown does a nice job in wrapping it up together and summarizing how important it is to allow yourself to be seen, right? Is
yes.
right. It's just, and when we say seen, like really deeply seen, and it can be
Mm-hmm.
um, in a way where you're wholeheartedly expressing yourself to someone. And of course, like example, when you fall in love, right? We're very hesitant, or there's a lot of hesitancy potentially if you've had
Mm-hmm.
prior bad experiences, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, allowing yourself to be seen. Because there's no guarantee that this other person on the receiving end is going to reciprocate the same feelings that you do, right? So that could be
Right.
very hard.
Right.
But and another thing, in speaking with relationships, I mean, it even ties into the relationships with your children, right? If we allow our children to see our vulnerable side of us, then I think that would only remind them that you're human as well. That it's a very validating experience to have your child see the vulnerable side of you, their parent, right? Is
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, there is a lot of value in that. And And that's what's funny, because when I was thinking about this and even what you're saying, because I did post about this too, about to live your most authentic life, like you got to be vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you got to be able um to allow ourselves, like you got to allow
Yes.
yourself, do you know what I mean,
Right.
like allow yourself to, like you said, to be seen for who you truly are, right? And so
Right.
when I was thinking about that with the kids. And it's funny because, and again, I'm gonna tell you, it's the middle child syndrome. What do I want most is to be seen, right? Is to be
Yeah.
heard. So, and I give that to people, like, you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I give them what I would want. And again, not everyone is like me, and I get that, but that's where I come from, right? So, like with
Yeah.
the kids, I'm telling you, it was so funny. I've always let them, and I expressed that on the other episode with Edmund, like I let them say what they need to say, and I then need to, like, teach them and show them,
Mm-hmm.
okay, now this is the way you need to say it, or this is how you can say it, right? So
Right.
with me, it's so funny. My kids, they're scared, and I don't always say scared, but they have that respect, because I don't like the fear. Like, they definitely respect me at a different level, and I know my
Right.
husband probably hates that, and what doesn't want me to share that, but it's because of the two-way what's the word, like the way, like what I've created with them, like it's
Mm-hmm.
a two-way street in a sense, but at the end of the day, I'm the mom, and so I make that very clear.
Right.
I'm not your friend, I'm your mom, and
Right.
you know so with the kids, I've always let them express themselves, be who they are. Like, I like to
Mm-hmm.
provide that safe environment for them, so they're
Right.
willing to tell me things. And oh my god, if I can share the conversations, I will not. But if I could share the conversations that I have with my kids,
Right.
you'd be like, what? And I'm like, yes, like we have those real raw, like no filter type of conversations. And it's
Right.
because I want them to always come to me, you know what I mean?
Right.
And with my husband, like he doesn't, that man, he's too much of an ego there, and it's because of the
Mhm.
way he was raised. And then, he came from a broken home, so his dad wasn't always there. So,
Right.
and I know people get offended when I say this, but like what drives him as a parent doesn't drive me, right? So, like,
Mhm.
with him, I'm going to be that dad because, his dad wasn't there. So he doesn't, like, to me, it always comes off as he wants to be the fun one, all those things. And
Mhm.
me, no, no, no.
Right.
My job is to guide you, to give you structure, the discipline. Like, I give you all of that, right? So
Right.
I don't want to say they are, but it's not the fear, but they definitely have a different respect because of the
Mhm.
way I carry myself and what I give to them.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So sorry, you took
Yeah.
me down a road, like, when you said
No,
kids,
no.
I was
But
like,
you know,
"Oh, yeah, girl," like.
but that is great. That's good because you're talking about allowing your kids, like you said, that safe space to be who they are, be
Mhm,
authentic,
mhm,
be true to themselves, and also to the circumstances, right? You're
mhm,
inviting them to come to you and approach you and be honest.
mhm,
And that could be very difficult with kids because as kids you feel maybe embarrassed or you feel it's going to be judged, or I'm going to be judged. I
mhm,
feel like, my parents aren't going to believe me and then they shut down. But it sounds like you've done a
mhm.
nice job because you're creating like a nice connection, right, between the two of
Yes,
you. And it's in it and with a level of respect, right? Of course, not
yes.
leaving that because you're obviously setting boundaries and limits around all that. So I think that's great. That's a definition of a meaningful relationship.
Yeah, I hope so. Like, trust me, none of us are perfect, and we're gonna do things wrong, and I know that. But I think they know the intent, or like what's behind it, right? So, like,
Mhm.
and as much as I do that, dude, I hold their feet to the fire. So when they tell me things about, like, with their friends and what they've done, and I know it's bad sometimes, but I try to
Mhm.
listen first, because I always want to. I know how I am. I'll jump in and say something, but I make a conscious effort to shut up, Dawn, and listen.
Yeah.
Listen first. So I'll listen and then see what they say, but then I'll say, okay, well, did you own this part? Like, did you own your actions? Like, I am that mom. Like, okay, like,
Right.
look, yes, you didn't have ill intent. Okay.
Right.
But, their feelings did get hurt, or that did happen. Like, did you
Sure.
own that? So it's so funny. So, and it's
That's
it's
good.
it's funny between the kids too, how different, like, I can talk to one way, and then the other one,
Sure.
but there's one that thinks she knows it all, and the other one is just like, yeah, 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 yeah.
Hmm. But
Uh,
you know what? It seems like you allow that space, kind of like going back to with your your staff before when you were a manager is
Mhm.
you allow them that opportunity to express whatever, if there's uncertainty there, if there's, need for, I don't know, acknowledgement, or again, just to see the authentic part of you so that they can remind themselves, like, okay, my boss is human too.
Yeah.
Or going back to your children, my mom is human too. She's not
Yes.
necessarily perfect given her position, given, position in the family, position at work, et cetera, et cetera. So even though it creates a lot of uncertainty, it's a risk that we take when we are feeling vulnerable because we are expressing our emotional self to others,
Yeah, it's a discomfort, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And, those moments, in all honesty, I believe it. Those moments of discomfort, whether it's personal or professional,
Hmm.
honestly, it's where you're going to find your greatest growth in life,
Hmm.
right? Like
Right.
we only grow from that. And that's if you allow yourself, right? If you allow yourself to learn from those things, like you can really, really grow. And it's funny because sometimes when I talk to people and the more I do my research and do my work, like when people are telling me like they're having a hard time and, they're struggling. And I was like, well, that's because you're growing. You have growth there. Like that's not why, like they always associate with something negative or something bad. But I'm like, it's because you're growing, like you're
Right.
learning and you are morphing. So
Hmm.
you're going to have
Hmm.
a little bit of discomfort.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I always find
Yeah.
that interesting, so,
Yeah. But I
um,
think that's I really like, hearing you say that because you understand the meaning of explaining to your clients or people that you interact with is those challenges, like you said, is what makes us better and stronger, right? Even though it makes us step out of our comfort zone and it feels so uncomfortable and uneasy, that is the part where we're
mhm.
allowing ourselves to be vulnerable because we feel uncomfortable because we're not in our
Yes,
usual element, right?
yes, yes. Yeah. So
Hmm.
for people that look, if you struggle with this, because I know we all do, right? But I think it's really good to acknowledge. Okay. So acknowledge your fears, your insecurities, the uncertainties of whatever it is you're going through. Acknowledge these things, but they don't define you.
Right.
And I think that's what, like, because that people
Mhm.
thinking how vulnerability is a weakness. No, it's not. It doesn't define who you are. Like, you know what I mean? These are just things that you're battling with, right? And acknowledge
Yeah.
them. And that's that whole resistant thing. The more you resist, it's going to
Yeah.
resist back, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And I
yeah,
think
my
it's a,
suggestion would be to start with acknowledging.
yes,
um,
acknowledging,
um,
allowing yourself to make mistakes, right? Because when you
yes.
acknowledge that you make a mistake, you're human, you understand. So that's acknowledging me. It, like you said earlier with your son is, okay, do you assume responsibility for your action, right? That is,
Hmm.
it starts with that. So letting
Hmm.
go of the ego or the shame or the guilt or whatever comes with all of that, and allowing yourself to understand that you are human, that you are going to make mistakes, and that this is a road to something bigger and better for you, right?
It is.
Recognizing that
Yeah.
you are going to struggle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so cute. So by the way, when he got in the car today, because he told me about the situation, he goes, I have good news. He has good news. I'm like, what? He's like, I guess my friend and I are, we're back to, being cool. We're talking. So,
Cute.
but it was funny because yesterday when I asked him, because he had a field trip, some how to go, all that, whatever. And then I was like, oh, was your friend there? And he's like, no, thank God. I'm like, why? Because it's awkward, right? So I said,
Right.
well, when you see him, you're nice, right? Of course, mom. I'm like, you still say hi, right? And he's like, yes, I do. Okay. And so I'm like, well, what does he do? And he's like, he just looks at me like what? Like he doesn't say anything. He just looks at him like, why are you saying hi to me? And I was like, Evan, you keep being you. You keep saying hi. Like, I'm sure he'll get over it. You told him that you're sorry and that that's not what your actions meant or whatever. So, you talked about it. Just give him time, right? So that is where we had left off. So then
Love it.
he had the field trip and he's like, no, thank God he wasn't there. And then today he's like, oh, I think we're cool again. Or
Oh,
so I was like, okay, well now just remember, let's not repeat.
right, right.
But
Oh,
you're human, we're going to, right? But like just owning
absolutely.
that, and then you know you like, and I've talked about this, like you can't, your actions can't be driven by what you want someone else's actions to be. If that
Mhm.
did I say that right?
Yeah.
So like with, with Evan, I'm like, you still need to be nice. Like it doesn't matter how he reacts to you. Like, don't try to get the attention in the wrong way, if that makes sense, right? So
Right.
like,
Mhm.
so I thought that was cute. So I think his friend was like, well, obviously he wasn't being mean, and you know what I mean. So anyway,
Right.
it's just so cute.
Aw.
It's too cute. But yeah,
It is cute. Yeah. And he had the opportunity to repair that, right? And
yes.
even though he was uncomfortable, it sounds like you guided him through that. It's
Yes, yeah, and they'll figure out, because not to be funny, as kids, everything's so dramatic and end of the
of
world, right? So,
course, of
and
course.
I'm not gonna lie, I remember those days, so I'm able to, okay, yeah, I remember when this is a big deal.
Hmm. And it's good that you put yourself in those situations and you
Yes,
remind yourself in their little world, it
yes,
is a big deal,
yeah,
right? And sometimes we forget that we once were in those situations potentially or
yes,
similar situations, and it was terrible. It was like, I don't want to go to school because I don't want to face
yeah,
this person. And right? It's like, who remembers
yes.
that? Oh, it's so provoking and anxiety provoking,
It
to
is,
say.
and isn't it so funny? Like isn't that me in a way being vulnerable? Like me saying,
Yes,
okay, I would feel this way if I was in his,
yes.
right. So I don't think people realize the benefit of acknowledging your vulnerability, right? Because believe it or not, like it helps you to be
Hmm.
empathetic,
Right,
compassionate, right?
right,
Understanding. You know what I mean?
right.
These are all good qualities that
Hmm.
can strengthen your relationships
Yes,
and communication. Ooh, did you
yes.
like how I just tied that
I
together?
love that. Very nice.
Oh, you
Mm.
guys, I'm loving this, and none of this is pre-planned, guys. But
Yeah.
it's just interesting. But
Mhm.
I want people. I feel, and I'm going to sound funny. Knowledge is power, but it's not just about having the knowledge. It's what do you do with it is what makes that
Mhm.
knowledge and powerful,
Yeah.
right? Because we all know right things what to do, but do you?
Right.
Right. So yes, I like to talk about these things. I like to highlight these things and bring it to the forefront of your mind to make us
Mhm.
more aware, right?
Aware.
So
Mhm.
knowledge is power, but if you're not going to do anything with what we're sharing, it's powerless, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a hard one, right? We started with initiated this conversation with talking about how difficult it can be to be vulnerable. And it doesn't have to, like everything, right? It doesn't happen overnight. Everything takes time, right? Is
Yes.
giving yourself a little bit of self-compassion. You start off with that, trying to figure out like, okay, what are other ways that I can allow myself to maybe let my guard down, or that protective mechanism that we all carry with ourselves, right? And our little best friend or not, the ego, right? Which doesn't allow us to express truly when we make a mistake, especially in
Hmm.
our relationships. If we make a mistake and own up to it, right? It's
Hmm.
okay to apologize. It's okay to say, I made a mistake. It wasn't what I meant to say, but I said it anyway, or I speak too soon, or I spoke too soon. And it's okay to, giving up that perfection, the need to be perfect, the need to be a certain way so that the person can love us more or communicate with us more. It's those are just a little bit of little tips on ways to be a little bit more vulnerable.
Yes, and you just something you said right now just reminded me of what Renee talked about in her Call to
Mhm.
Courage.
Yeah.
Oh my God, and I'm going to butcher this, but bear with me here. But okay, so she talks about this story where she was doing her first TED talk,
Mhm.
and she didn't want to go in with her normal, I study shame and whatever it is that Renee researches, right?
Right.
She something provoked her, and she was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go in and just have a conversation. Like, I'm not planning anything. I'm not gonna do, it's just gonna be raw, and so she goes in there and has this. I haven't now, I need to go listen to this thing, but she talked about it, and she was very real, very raw. Like, I don't know if you're aware of this, but it ended up at the time, like she walked out of there like feeling so good. Like I
Mhm.
just had this nice, real raw conversation and and then the comments, oh my God, like
Mhm.
the comments she got about her,
Right.
her physical, like, what she looks like.
Mhm.
Oh my, horrible comments.
Right.
I couldn't believe some of the
Judgment,
stuff. Yes,
criticism
yes,
upon
all of it. I
her,
couldn't
right?
believe what people said.
Bashing. Yeah.
Yes. And it was so interesting. So she goes home. Her husband's like, look, stay offline. Do not go online. Don't read the comments. And she's like, yeah, 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 yeah. I know. Like, oh, hell no, she did. And then she was like, oh my, how do you not like let these things, affect you? Right. So
Right.
I don't know if it was her. It was, I think, this one where she's like, when people say they don't care about what people think, she doesn't believe that. But I promise you, I really don't. Now, if I care about you, I'm going to consider what you think. I feel that
Mhm.
that's a different. I'll have consideration, but at the end of the
Right.
day, I truly like live life like I don't give a, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like I can't, like I truly live with God is the only person that can judge me, and I promise you that again, I can consider what you think, what you feel, but ultimately it's me and God, dude. I gotta lay down happy with myself at night,
That's right.
and God, like that's just in all honesty, but outside of
Right.
that, so she read the comments and she sat there and oh my God, like it was so bad for her. And it was so funny. So look at what she did. She watched Downtown Abbey. You see how funny, like I'm feeling like, oh, what am I going to do?
Yes.
I need to watch something like, so it was so
Right.
funny that she sat for 7 hours in front of the TV and watched Downtown Abbey. And then after that goes and Googles the real, it was hilarious.
Right.
But anyways, so the thing is she talked about that and going through that. And then she said it was like intervention, like it was God's intervening.
Divine intervention, right?
Thank you.
Yes.
I try to say
Uh-huh.
that. So when in her state of Googling, she ended up Googling something that took her to oh God, what was his name? Forgot his Theodore out of somebody. And how he says, oh my God, Dawn, dang it, I'm gonna have to Google this, but the point is this person Theodore something, I don't remember. He talks about like being in the arena and getting beat down, do you know what I
Wow.
mean, and
Yeah.
just being in it, oh, I'm so gonna butcher this, and I just thought that was so amazing because
Yeah.
oh my God, what is that phrase she said? There's this phrase, and she uses it. Oh my gosh, it's something to great or, oh girl, I'm so mad at myself. I should have took better notes. But anyways,
I yeah, sorry. It's been a while since I've seen that one, so I would help you otherwise, so I'm sure.
but what I liked was she says after that, like it was a switch for her. And she's like, no, like, you know what? This is my journey. This is me. Like, I'm gonna, and I'm butchering this,
Work
but
through
like
this.
basically I'm gonna go down fighting. Like
Mhm.
when you're in the thick of these things, bad
Yeah.
things are gonna happen. Things are not gonna go your way. You're gonna get knocked down, but you're gonna get back up. And I mean, it was just so motivating. Cause now, mind you, she's saying all these things, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I have no filter. And I'm on these podcasts, having all these damn episodes saying my opinions and my feelings all day long. And, they say when you get a hater is when you make it. Oh boy,
Mhm.
well, I have not made it yet. I've only been getting positive comments. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna love the day I get a hater when I first get my first hater because, then that means I've made it. Do you know what I mean? But
Yes.
so I thought that was so funny. But anyways, but I'm not gonna lie to you. Like she kind of like,
Right.
oh crap, Dawn, you better be careful. Like, because
Yeah.
people come after you.
Right.
But you know what? I was like, no, like I'm living my life. Like this
Right.
podcast is for me.
Mhm.
It's something that I want to do. Like I've told you before, it's a form of therapy for me because I love to talk. I need to let things out. I don't
Right.
like things festering inside. I think that's
Right.
poisonous for you, right? So
Yes.
as much as I like to think that I'm doing something for the world here with each episode,
Right.
it's
You
really
think
for
I'm sure you
me.
are.
Like it's
Yes.
it's for me. Like honestly, like I enjoy this. This is a way of me pouring into myself.
Yes.
Um this is me of healing my inner child.
There you go.
I can go on and on and on about how the whole world, it's all about me. We all know it's not, but in my little head and my mirror tells me
Right. That's what makes you happy.
yes.
Right.
So I thought that was so interesting, and I like that she ended with that. Like, why not go through life like this? Why not be in that arena and having all the eyes and all those people on you, and you just, being raw, being authentic, being vulnerable, being all these things,
Right.
and
Right.
just putting that fight in. It's not about winning, right? So
Right.
I really love that, and I promise you I'm going to put it in my description, okay, for those that are interested, but I will put it in there, that saying that she uses, and it
Hmm.
came from him. And she said that that changed her life,
Yeah.
like literally, the way she thinks, the way she like it.
Mhm.
And I just love those moments when we have
Yes.
those moments in life,
Right.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I can tell you, I remember when I was in ninth grade, and I
Hmm.
just remember literally just waking up one day thinking, man, if I don't change the way I am, because I didn't like going to school. I was a lazy ass kid, dude, believe it or not, but I always worked. I worked since I was 12 years old, but outside of that, I was lazy. But I just remember literally waking up one day thinking, oh my God, if I don't make these changes, like, I'm not going to have anything different in life, like opposed to my
Right.
surroundings and what I was seeing. And I've always believed change requires change.
Right. Yes.
Right. So
Hmm.
I literally woke up, and literally from one day to the next, I'm like, okay, Dawn, you got to care about yourself. You got to love yourself. And I've said this in other episodes. This is when I started to look in the mirror and say, you're so beautiful. You're so pretty. I love you. Like, so it's just funny how that clicked with me. And that was a moment I'll never forget. And when I started to
Right.
care, so
Yeah.
like I said before, lucky for me, it happened earlier on in life. But honestly, it's never too late. And my breakaway today is will differ from yours, because there's so much in my mind and so many ways I can keep talking and go down different avenues with this conversation. But
Hmm.
honestly, I think that as human beings, we take time for granted, and we take people, and we don't we people for granted. I feel that gratitude is also something that you need to practice more, right? Because I think if you have that mindset of being um grateful for what you do have and things that
Right.
you don't have, like, you know you can have a more joyful life, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And so honestly, like, there's just so much going on right now,
Hmm.
personally and professionally, and I'm like, wow, we really do take so much for granted, and I did want to share, what do you have to lose with being, yourself, being who you are, and living in your truth, right? For you,
Hmm.
not
Right.
for anyone else. And
Yeah.
let me tell you, those people that don't um like it, they're not for you, right?
Exactly.
Like,
Right.
you have to remember that, like, if I have to dim my light, or filter myself, like if I have to
Right.
do certain things, I cannot have you in my life. I cannot have you as a friend.
Right.
And so I think people, you need to be more vulnerable in every
Mhm.
aspect of life. So if you
Yeah.
hear anything, hear that, because you're being true to yourself. You're
Hmm.
showing us your flawless, true self, and, celebrate that. Love who you are.
Right.
And you can start, if you don't love yourself and that struggles, gratitude, 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 gratitude. Change your mindset, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Very well said, Don. I love this topic. Thank you for bringing it to light.
Thank you. I enjoy it. So keep pushing, keep shining, and keep thriving.